Okay, so, there was this real big shot, right? Like, a total Silicon Valley royalty type, called Ethan Hayes. He once stopped a freakin' plane for me, and I, in turn, ditched him, pregnant, for 3 whole years. We actually tied the knot. Fast forward 9 years, and there's this newer, prettier girl, Tiffany, all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, hanging around him. She's all about the adventure, doing every crazy thing right alongside him. Meanwhile, I've become a stay-at-home mom, mostly concerned about whether our daughter, Lily, is sneaking junk food. Ethan, he looks at me with this disappointed look, and says, "Sarah, you've lost your spark." Even Lily, my own kid, is like, "Tiffany is so smart and pretty and, like, actually works. You just leech off of dad." So, the next day, armed with my ID, I walked right into his office and filed for divorce. They seemed to have forgotten. At 22, I was ready to jump off a cliff to get away. At 35, I still had the balls to start over. Down in this old Rust Belt city, Pittsburgh, I walked into this small tech company, the kind where the paint's peeling. The receptionist, she's glued to TikTok, blasting some gossip clip. Ethan Hayes just got divorced. The guy's straight out of a novel. Ex-wife was a brainy Ivy League type, but his family hated her, so it was all this chase and escape drama. Word is, remember that U8420 flight that got grounded back in the day? Ethan grounded the thing just to find her. Now they're divorced. Figures. Marrying above your class is never easy, right? This girl, she's so into it, she doesn't even notice me walk in. So, I just stood there and listened to my life story for 3 minutes straight. She finally looks up, flustered. "Oh, sorry. Are you here for the interview?" "Yeah," I said, 10 o'clock with Mr. Johnson, for the software engineer position. She nods. "Right. Fill out this form. Mr. Johnson mentioned you also went to Harvard. Did you ever meet Mrs. Hayes? I think her name was, married to Ethan so long, I'd kind of forgotten my own name." I smiled slightly. "Sarah Young." "Right, Sarah Young." Her eyes are wide, like she's seen a celeb. "To land a guy like Ethan, you must be a brainy supermodel." "A supermodel, huh?" I just about laughed. Last week, Lily was complaining about my love handles, saying they were not nearly as cute as some 20-year-olds. "Ma'am, all set? I'll take this to the hiring manager," the girl said. I hand it over, and she practically jumps when she reads it. "You're Sarah Young?" The interview went pretty well. Mr. Johnson, the tech guy, was looking at my resume. State valedictorian, #1 in computer science at Harvard, 3 top-tier publications. "Miss Young, your credentials are solid. What I'm curious about is, why'd you stop working after graduation?" I gripped my pants and said quietly, "To raise my daughter. I got pregnant, unexpectedly, at 22. Ethan's mom wanted him to marry some suitable girl, someone with the right pedigree, not some girl from the wrong side of the tracks like me. She went hardcore, trying to push me out. She was this polished woman with red lipstick, looking at me like I was dirt, and surrounded by a pack of bodyguards. It was dark. The water was ice cold. I jumped. Everyone thought I was dead then. Maybe from the fall, maybe the pregnancy. Lily was born weak, with allergies, could never take formula, a fussy baby who cried constantly. Just me, a new mom recovering, desperately trying to keep her alive. Johnson nodded. "Miss Young, you've been out of the field for a while. It would mean starting at an entry-level position. You okay with that?" I said, "Absolutely." He stood up and shook my hand. "Welcome aboard, then." My heart skipped a beat, just like when I found out I got into Harvard. This felt like my second start. I walked into work the next day and Mr. Johnson looked apologetic. "I'm sorry, Miss Young, the offer's rescinded." I was stunned. "Why?" He gulped and pointed. "We were just acquired by a new company. The new CEO says he can't hire you." I looked over. Sunlight was streaming through the blinds, outlining the guy sitting in the leather chair. Tall, in a custom-fit suit, with black socks showing below his tailored pants. The only accessory was some 8-figure watch on his wrist, screaming wealth. The chair swiveled. There he was, Ethan. Eyes blazing. Sarah Young, are you done playing these games? Lily is waiting for you to come home. He looked around at the faded walls, the old water cooler, sneering, you think you can make $6,000 a month here? I'm busy, I don't have time for these shenanigans. I looked at the guy I'd been tangled up with since I was 20. I started to laugh. Go home? To cater to your girlfriend? Ethan, I'm not that pathetic. He pinched the bridge of his nose. I've told you a million times, that night, I was drunk, I don't remember anything. Click, click, click. High heels came into the office, followed by a pair of long legs in tan heels. Tiffany walked in, with a short gray skirt and her belly ever so slightly showing. She put the papers on Ethan's desk. Here's the acquisition contract, Mr. Hayes. I felt the breath leave me. I took a deep breath and spoke coldly, real creative. Coming after your ex, with your pregnant girlfriend. Ethan frowned. Tiffany is different. She's my VP of operations. I can't do this without her. Besides, you've never worked. You wouldn't get it. Each word was like a stab. 18-year-old me was the top of my class, the school's star. My hometown was so proud. 22-year-old me was student body president, and flew off to conferences, confident and fluent. 35-year-old me? Tiffany looked at me, all young and fresh-faced. Sarah, please, it's not Ethan's fault. That was the company holiday party. We were both drunk. I wanted an abortion, but Ethan's mom insisted I get checked out. Turns out, it's a boy, and so she's pressuring me to keep it. She touched her belly and smiled. You know how his mom has wanted another boy. And all these years Ethan's been handling the pressure for you. It was all so ridiculous, it was like I was drowning all over again. Why couldn't I have a baby? That old woman knew why. And I told everyone, Lily is my only child. Whatever, Ethan stood, towering over me. At 20, it was cute. At 30, it's not cute. It's stupid. He said each word carefully. Sarah, you think this through. I tried at 7 other tech companies. All of them were instantly squashed by Ethan. His word was law in the industry. It got to the point where they'd hang up the moment they heard my name. Ethan calls, casual like, running low on funds yet? Just come back home, say you're sorry. You can be Mrs. Hayes again. I dug my nails into my palm. No freaking way. When we got married, Ethan handed me a credit card with no limit, and I could buy designer bags and shoes and whatever else I wanted. But I never had cash. It was like a gold cage, pretty, sturdy, and suffocating. The next day, I was standing in front of a cleaning company. $30 an hour, 10 hours a day, paid daily. Cleaning locations changed depending on clients, the lady with curly hair said, handing me a uniform. She looked me up and down. You're a brain, you think you can do manual labor? I smiled, don't underestimate me. I'm good at this. My folks died when I was 13. To survive, I worked as a waitress, washed cars, sold clothes. People always said, Sarah, you and Ethan, you're from different worlds. I knew. He was a jet setter, a safari guy, a polar explorer. When he went places, they practically rolled out the red carpet for him. I'd never left my small town before 18. After 10 years of marriage, I actually thought I could keep up. That, in the end, it would all be a happy ending. But the story ended, and life went on. It was all about bills and kids and stupid little squabbles, about class differences, and the subtle put-downs, and the loss of my voice. It was like a layer of sand, always between us, starting as an irritation, but over time, becoming something that slowly and surely wore me down. I put on the uniform, looked in the mirror. A woman with no makeup, no jewels. Once, I was a glamorous wife in Dior, with a champagne glass in my hand. But Sarah Young, a cleaner, had to survive first before I could be dignified. My second week, I was assigned to an art gallery. There was a special preview, and they wanted us for cleaning. The kid I was working with was about half my size, kind of skinny, like he didn't get enough to eat, but his eyes were bright, like stars. I asked, "How old are you?" 16, he said. I laughed, "No way. My daughter is 12, you look like you're 13, Max." He looked alarmed. "Don't tell on me, please. This is the best job I could find." I shook my head, "I won't. We all have a tough time at 13. He smiled shyly at me. For 2 hours, he followed me around. "I'll get that trash, too heavy for you. I'll hold the ladder for you so you don't fall." I handed him a napkin. "You're sweating. What's your name?" "Pete." He said it softly, looking up at me. "Your left eye, can you see with it?" I paused. "How'd you know?" "No one, not even my husband or daughter, ever noticed." He pointed at the distance between the canvases. "Your spacing isn't always perfect. Is it because you're sick?" I shook my head. It was a gunshot. Trying to save my ex and daughter. His eyes widened. "They must be, like, super grateful, right?" I tried to smile, but it felt forced. "They don't even remember." I touched my false eye and my heart hurt. The two people who should know me best, they were clueless about my pain. "Don't cry, please." Pete stood, awkwardly, wiping a tear from my face. Did I just cry? He puffed out his cheeks. "They're just careless. It's their fault. I'll help you with the heavy stuff. I'll make sure your spacing is right. I'll be your eyes. Anyone tries to hurt you, I'll fight them." His honesty warmed me up, and I smiled. "Okay, deal. You be my eyes, and we're partners." He looked shy, but hooked pinkies with me. "Yep. Pinky swear, forever and ever." The preview hadn't officially started. Just a few with special invites were there. Pete and I were carefully wiping down the frames. Then I heard a familiar voice. "Lily, this is by Tobias. You like it? Auntie can buy it for you." I froze. My daughter, Lily Hayes, in a frilly dress, wearing a diamond hair clip. She was with Tiffany, all chummy. "Thanks, Auntie Tiffany. We have 3 Tobias pieces already." I wanted to see something realistic. With her were 3 other rich kids. Like she knew I'd be there, Tiffany looked at me, with this mean grin, and suddenly shouted, "Lily, what do you think of that one?" Pointing at the painting I was cleaning. My heart jumped. I tried to hide my face. I didn't think my job was anything to be ashamed of, but I wanted to keep a shred of dignity in front of my daughter and her friends. "Don't look at me, please. Don't let her see me like this." But it was like a slow-motion movie. Lily turned towards me, scanning me, my uniform, the cleaning rag. Not even a flicker of recognition. She looked away. "That's not my mom. I told you, she's dead." A thunderbolt hit me. My vision swam. I sliced my hand on the frame, and blood poured out. Tiffany giggled, holding Lily's face. "Well, sweetie, what kind of new mom do you want?" Lily hugged Tiffany and nuzzled her. "Someone like Auntie Tiffany. Smart and pretty and fun." My heart felt like it was being punched over and over. The daughter I carried for 9 months, the one I nursed through sleepless nights, the one I whispered lullabies to, was now cursing me dead and calling another woman mom. A small tornado flew into her path. Pete shoved Lily. "Your mom is right here. Can't you see her?" Everything went haywire. My hand was bleeding all over. Pete and Lily were on the ground. Tiffany held her stomach and passed out. The sirens, the screaming, the running. I woke up in the hospital. Everyone was fussing over Tiffany. My hand was still bleeding. Ethan rushed in, furious. "Sarah, what's gotten into you? You want to embarrass Lily? What does she tell her friends? And Pete? Tiffany's pregnant. She fainted when he startled her. Go and apologize when she wakes, okay?" Apologize to Tiffany? I just laughed, and I couldn't help it. Ethan looked angry. "What are you laughing at?" I held up my hand. "Maybe you should notice there's more than just her injured." He was quiet for a moment. I'll get a doctor. No need, I said, dryly, you're a busy guy, by the time you get around to it, I might have bled out. Ethan rubbed his forehead. At least, see Lily? I nodded. I wanted my charm back. The one my mother gave to me. My mom got really sick when I was 13. She was on her side in bed, her face gaunt, her hand in mine. Sarah, she whispered, I don't have much time left. She reached behind her neck and pulled off a jade charm on a red string. The jade was smooth, cool, and seemed to glow with a soft light. She put it around my neck. Your grandma gave me this. It's for peace and safety. I give it to you now. I hope you live a peaceful life. Her eyes were sad, the look of a mother about to say goodbye. I'm so sorry I can't do more for you, Sarah. You have to go on without me. I held her hand, my voice shaking, my face wet with tears. She went from 130 pounds to 80, and then became a tiny little jar of ashes. I hugged her urn and cried like I was a kid being hugged by my mother. Mom. From that moment on, whenever I called out for my mother, no one would answer. The charm became my treasure, my source of comfort. Until Lily was born. When Ethan's mother forced me to jump off that cliff, I was already 4 months pregnant. The impact, the fear, the freezing water, I was barely alive when they pulled me out. They barely saved my baby after months in the hospital, and Lily was born early. I looked at that tiny blue baby in the incubator. I held my mother's charm and prayed. If there was a God, please, I just wanted my daughter to be safe. I'd give everything, my own life, my own happiness, just to save her. The hospital wall heard more mothers cry and pray than any temple. 3 months later, Lily was finally safe. I cried and put the charm around her neck. It felt like my life, part of it was with me, and the bigger part was with my daughter. Ethan and I walked in. Tiffany was fine, not even close to fainting. Lily was surrounded by snacks. She saw me and stared me down while she chomped down on some chips. She had allergies, I never let her eat that. I'd seen Tiffany secretly give her a big bag of snacks. Here, Lily, eat up. You like me better than your mom anyway. She doesn't work, she just focuses on you, looking for ways to be important. I'm a powerful career woman, and I'm not like that. Ethan looked at them fondly. Lily finished the chips and looked at me. I was quiet, and then I said, give me my charm. Lily was confused. What? The charm I gave you when you were born. Give it to me. Tiffany laughed. You mean this thing? She held a red string with a piece of jade. It was my charm. When I fainted, Lily got worried and gave it to me, said it was for good luck. To protect me and her little brother. My mother's charm, my personal lifeline, was given away by my daughter to my husband's girlfriend. My head started spinning. I couldn't hear the noise around me, my face drained of color. Give it back. I lunged at Tiffany. Give it back. Tiffany screamed, it's just a stupid rock. You act like it's so precious. Like you don't have money to buy better. She pulled the string and threw the charm at me. It shattered on the floor. I saw my mother's hand holding it, her pale face and soft smile. This charm protects you, my Sarah, it'll keep you safe forever. Mom, I'm sorry. The only thing you gave me, I broke it. Everything went dark, like a puppet with broken strings. I collapsed. Mom! Sarah! I could feel myself being lifted into Ethan's arms and being rushed to the ER. The doctor was examining my eye. She's blind in her left eye. This was a result of emotional distress. It was all that pressure, that's what caused her to faint. I heard Ethan scream right before I passed out, why is she blind? I knew I was dreaming, because I saw my 22-year-old self. The waves crashed against the rocks, the sky was dark with stars. Sarah was standing on the cliff, wearing a flimsy dress, the wind moving it like a seagull. She looked up and smiled, you made it. I walked up to her, seeing that young face, and started crying. I'm sorry, I let you down. I hadn't become a leader, or a superstar student. I didn't advance in my career, didn't work, and became a woman who was abandoned by her husband and daughter. I couldn't even keep my mom's last gift. I'm so sorry. I became a weak, tired, and useless woman. No, the younger Sarah said, smiling, you did great. She looked at me, you made it this far, alone, you were amazing, and you are amazing. Thank you, you worked so hard for us. She said, clearly, do you remember who saved you when you jumped off that cliff? It was you. You were so weak, you grabbed onto a plank of wood, you floated all night, and by morning the fisherman saved you. You can do things no one else can do. The younger Sarah hugged me. Her hair brushed against my shoulders. She said, no one will ever pull you out of the dark. You're the one that has to do it. So don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to be broke. The things you experienced, the knowledge, the pain, the tears, it was all with you. You always have yourself. My years of sadness came out. The tears were salty. I buried my face in her neck and cried. The stars looked down at two versions of the same woman, together. Don't fear hardship. Don't fear uncertainty. Because I would, time and time again, save myself from this world. It felt like I'd been dreaming for days. Or like I was finally awake from a dream. My pillow was wet with tears. I smelled the antiseptic in the air. Ethan was asleep next to my bed, and he jumped up when I moved. Sarah? You're awake. Are you hurting anywhere? Lily, fidgeting with her dress, mumbled, Mom. I just closed my eyes. I was fine, until I saw them. Ethan looked at my left eye. Sarah, why? The doctor said your left eye is a prosthetic. That was 9 years ago, the year I found you. What happened then? He looked scared, like he wanted to know, but was terrified to hear the truth. Sarah, did I forget something? I was in bed, looking up at the IV bag. It all rushed back into me like the drips flowing down the tube. After I jumped, Ethan didn't give up on me. He didn't believe I was dead, and he refused to marry the woman his family picked for him. He tore apart the city, searching. I hid, focusing on Lily, and did some freelance work online. But I never stopped learning. When Lily turned 3, I got a great offer from MIT. My old professor liked my work, and the scholarship was enough to cover everything for us. I felt alive again. A week later, I was on a plane to America, looking out at the ground. Goodbye, DC. Goodbye, Ethan? Suddenly, the plane lurched and started descending. What's going on? Passengers shouted. The flight attendant smiled sadly. Miss Young, this way please. I didn't move. Mr. Hayes said we can't take off until you get off. Everyone on the plane stared at me. I stood up. In the first-class lounge I saw Ethan. He looked terrible. Red-eyed, unshaven. Like he hadn't slept in days. I'd never seen Ethan like this before. He knelt in front of me and hugged me tight, burying his face in my neck. He whispered, Sarah, you're not dead. I've never given up looking for you. I'd never stop. You're with a little girl? Lily is yours, right? His eyes were teary. He carefully took Lily into his arms. She looks like me. A lot. He had stopped the plane and it had been tracked to the family enemies, and just when Ethan was hugging Lily, glass shattered from a bullet. Look out. I pushed Lily and Ethan down and fell to the ground, a bullet hitting my eye. Blood poured from my hand. Sarah. The bullets were flying. The gunfire was meant for Ethan. Ethan's security came, taking us by helicopter to the hospital. His chest was covered in blood. He was pale, his eyes on mine. Sarah, I love you. He said each word like it took all his strength, his voice shaking. He grabbed my hand. If I make it, please give me another chance. Let me fix all of it, okay? Ethan was in surgery. My eye was covered up. My vision was gone for good. Ethan was badly hurt, a bullet through his right lung, broken ribs, massive blood loss. I saw Ethan lying in the ICU, breathing through a mask. I was young and naive. The whole experience made me realize I still loved him. If he lived, I thought, I would give him a chance. A week later, Ethan woke up, but remembered nothing. His brain blocked it out. I figured it didn't matter. I'd remember it for him. I gave up my offer at MIT and got back into his gilded cage. I didn't know what butterfly effect this decision would have. If I hadn't forgiven Ethan and had gone to school, how different would it all be? I trusted his heart, but hearts change. The daughter who loved to be cuddled now preferred other women. The man who said he'd spend his life making it up to me slept with someone young and hot. And now, I would leave this cage for good. I was going to live for myself. He was quiet, breathing heavy. All this time, Sarah, why didn't you ever tell me? I turned away. Some things you know without being told, some things are useless to say. The sunlight climbed the window pane, but didn't touch us. Ethan bent over, like he was about to collapse, and he put his face in his hands. After a long time, he started to cry. From that day on, things were different. Ethan put his desk in my hospital room. He was always there, on the phone with clients, and at night, he'd wake up every couple of hours to make sure I was okay. He even made some weird healthy soup, and spoon-fed it to me. I almost thought he wanted me to adopt him. After I got admitted, no one watched Lily's junk food intake anymore. She ate like crazy and her face swelled up. She scratched her skin to pieces, and she'd likely have scars. She cried, "Mom, I'm sorry. I won't eat junk food. I'll listen to you." I would have held her and comforted her. Instead, I stared at her swollen face and laughed. "You look awful, cover that up. You're scaring people." I was me, first. Not a mom, not a wife. Time moved on, and my birthday arrived. Ethan had brought a cake. The candle flickered in the sterile room. Ethan said, "Make a wish." I closed my eyes, and when I blew them out, Lily said, "Mom, was your wish about Dad and me?" I used to wish for her safety, and for Ethan's success. Never for me. "It was," I said. Lily was bouncing. "Ethan waited for me." I said without emotion, "I wish that Ethan and Lily, all of you, just pack up your crap and get out of my life." The room got cold. Lily stared at me, and started to wail. Ethan tried to smile, but it was worse than crying. "Sarah, it's your birthday, stop with the jokes." I looked straight at him. "I'm not joking, Ethan. Some people are meant to only stay for a limited time. Our time is done. That attack made us stay together 9 more years. But the thread that kept us together was too weak, and it finally broke. Give us a clean break." Ethan was silent, like a statue. His hands were clenched, his knuckles white. He said, "Finally, you'll never forgive me, will you?" I nodded, like we were discussing the weather. "No. I don't love you anymore either." He turned away, his face rigid, like a lake that hasn't seen the sun. I saw the glimmer of a tear. Lily suddenly grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my skin, sobbing, "I don't want to go. I want my mom." She hurt me again. I put my hand over hers, and pulled her off. "Don't call me that anymore." I smiled, "I have a new son, he'll get jealous." Lily was confused. "Who?" Pete walked over to me, leaning close to me. The charm he had fixed up was hanging around his neck. Lily had thrown away something precious, and someone else found it valuable. The mom she didn't care for, someone else cared for. Lily was in shock, crying, "It's because of him. You don't love me because of him." She started hitting him. I put my arm around him, and looked at her coldly. "Lily, stop it. You look ridiculous. You hurt my son again, and I'll call the cops on you." That was the day Ethan took Lily home. Before he left, he looked at me for the longest time, and he said, softly, "I'm sorry, Sarah. I'm so sorry for hurting you." It was done. A month later, I healed, and went straight to the adoption center for Pete, now called Young. After a long, complicated procedure, it was official. He hugged me, "Mom, Mom, Mom." I ruffled his hair and smiled. Hey. I opened my computer and sent another email to that professor at MIT, the one who had offered me that spot. After waiting 2 weeks, I got an email from MIT. The professor still remembered me and wanted me to come learn with him. I screamed, my heart thumping. I had done it. At 35, I had pulled myself out of hell once again. The future was like a bright path ahead of me. 9 years later, I boarded another plane for America with Young. Before I boarded, I gathered every last detail of every corrupt and horrible thing that Ethan's family had done, and I wrote a detailed report to the authorities. It was a period at the end of a chapter. As the plane took off, I closed my eyes and fell asleep. I dreamt about the 18-year-old me, holding the letter from Harvard, walking into D.C., her ponytail swinging. She wore old faded clothes and had no makeup. Yet she was so bright, so full of fire. Looking at her, I said, sadly, you're going to have a hard few years. You're going to jump into the sea, you're going to get shot, have a baby, and get divorced. You will feel sadness and pain. You'll lose everything. You'll be so tired. Her eyes widened. That sounds really tough, huh? I was about to say something, but she stepped forward, smiling. But you made it through it, and you're fine, aren't you? You did it, and I can do it, too. I want to find out myself. Don't give me spoilers. The 18-year-old me was like a weed. Even on a cliffside, she'd push through the stone and spread her leaves towards the sun and rain. I might have taken a detour. I might have gotten lost and been hurt. But I'd reach out to myself and save myself from the dark. The 35-year-old me could do that, too. I had lost myself, and I found myself again. I finally smiled. We walked forward, holding hands, towards that long, bright path. I was my own courage and my own armor. From now on, the sun was shining bright, and the path was clear.